If you're not familiar with Aave, it is currently the #1 protocol in the world by TVL.
For me, when Aave was $10 million, versus now $70 billion, it's pretty similar in terms of my perception of criticality.
What advice would you have for other teams?
It's a very gray area, is decentralization good or is centralization good? And how to do one and how to do the other. If you cannot explain clearly which is the upgrade about, and all the edge cases that we identify, points of focus and so on, it means that the upgrade is not ready.
What is your most controversial take on Web3 security?
Everything changes very, very fast. Techniques that were working very well 2 years ago, now they need to be slightly different.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining the Web3 Security Podcast. Today we have Ernesto Boado, who is the co-founder of BGD Labs and ex-CTO of Aave. If you're not familiar with Aave, it is currently the #1 protocol in the world by TVL, has roughly $70 billion in assets. And if it were compared to a US bank, it would be one of the 40 largest banks in the entire US. So really cool to have Ernesto on today. Would love to, go into your background a bit, Ernesto, and then talk about Aave and specifically securing Aave and just how you do it. I mean, you're in uncharted territory in terms of no one has ever kind of been where Aave is and been where you are. So I think this could be a really exciting conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me here, Jack. So yeah, I think you kind of introduced me a bit, but I can maybe say a couple of words. I'm the co-founder of BGD Labs. That is my company, which at the moment we are core contributors on development and security of the Aave protocol, mainly, I would say close to 100%. And about my background, I'm a software engineer by education, and I joined the pre-DeFi world, we could say the blockchain world, in 2018 at the very beginning, before I was experimenting with on-chain applications, which were related more with governance and so on, on my studies, and not in parallel working, but on Web2 traditional software, let's say. And then in 2018, I decided to jump into Ethereum development, on a company that was called Ethlend, which happened to be Aave, afterwards with a rebranding. And that was kind of the very, very beginning of DeFi, before there was even the concept of DeFi, that later on became the DeFi that we know right now, with so many zeros next to the words, and the worst parts too, associated with security sometimes and so on and so forth. But yeah, and then during my time in Aave, being one of the initial members, soon I was very involved on the smart contracts development since the start, and naturally took more of a leadership position, and at the end, I was the CTO before Aave became quite decentralized, so fully DAO control on chain via smart contracts. And then is when in 2022 at the beginning, when together with Andre, my co-founder, we created BGD Labs to contribute still to Aave, but from the pure DAO perspective, so a completely independent entity having a contract with a smart contract.
Yeah. It's always interesting seeing the different entities that get created and kind of the relationships between all of those for these protocols that become fully decentralized. I guess, I would love to know where you even got your start. Were you into computers from a young age? Was it really going to university and, majoring in computer science? What was sort of your beginning when it comes to just computers and technology?
Well, I think I'm not like the typical case like of somebody who was very deep into programming for a very very early age, like any type of genius programmer or something like that. Far from it. Like I think I'm more a multidisciplinary person. Like obviously I like software engineer. And yeah, I my university education, like my major, like yeah, we don't use that concept in Spain, but yeah, like my major is of computer science, like, but yeah, I would not say that I was like from very early on, like obsessed like with programming or something like that. I think that actually like DeFi, not DeFi, like, but the blockchain concept, like, and especially Ethereum, like the initial ethos, like was what really changed quite a lot. I mean, I was already working in software development and enjoying it in a completely different field. Like, but this concept, like of Ethereum, like this global server, like that anybody can access, like, and involved like with financial transactions, like of some type. That was like what really attracted me. Like, and then yeah, I would say that maybe I was more obsessed. Like afterwards, right now is yeah. I mean, of course, I like a lot what I do. Like, but yeah, it's also quite big responsibility. Like, so it's yeah. I would say that is my how I see like the field, like and myself. But yeah, like to answer more precisely to your question, like I think I'm pretty yeah multidisciplinary person, like software engineer by education, like but not really like completely deep, like on programming for a very early age.
Yeah. Okay. And so what were you doing before Ethlend? Was it programming? And then how did you find Ethlend? Like it probably wasn't the most obvious company in the world back then. So how did you get into it?
Yeah, so yeah, to be more specific, I was working in geographical systems, actually, like so maps and so on. Like no, it was not really like so big projects, I would say, but pretty interesting. Like it was like the beginning of my career, like in software development, like back in the days. It's quite a long time ago. When I look back, and what was your second question?
How did you find? I mean, Ethlend probably wasn't in the local newspaper. Did someone send you?
No. I mean, like I was, as I mentioned, like doing like an application by myself. It was not a commercial application, like, but it was me like experimenting with early Ethereum, like so remix era, truffle,
Yeah.
like MetaMask on everything, like and related with voting. Funny enough, like for how that became afterwards, and just looking for jobs. Like I was thinking, okay, I want to maybe do something on systems that are in production. Like and Ethlend was had an ICO like I think December or something like of 2017. So it was just
The
after
top,
like
top of the top.
yeah, pretty well. I mean, not top anymore, like, but for a very long time was the top.
Yeah.
Like and I reached out like to Stani, like the founder, like and well, I mean, we did some interview, like it seems he saw some potential, like and we started working together. We moved like to Switzerland, like everybody on the team, like so. It was an adventure by itself, but yeah.
No way. So how many people were there when you joined? Obviously, Stani was one of them. And what do you mean you moved to like everybody moved to Switzerland?
Yeah, I mean, like so, like the ICO just happened. Like so, like what happened with a lot of teams is that at the ICO stage, everybody was completely remote, and it was like a bunch of contributors, like on different areas, like so development, marketing, like whatever. Like, but in a lot of cases, there was no physical like location. So the we opened like an office like in Switzerland, which was where the company was originally based. Like so well, there was nobody actually living at that point in Switzerland. So everybody was moving to Switzerland. In my case, it was in the border like of Switzerland and Italy. So my case, like and others, like we were living actually in Italy, like on Como, on the Como Lake, and crossing every day, like to the office to what will be the Aave office, like in Switzerland. We arrived there and we opened the office. About the number of people, I don't really remember. It was very small team at that stage. It could have been 15 people or something like that, but then there was like a lot of people that left post ICO and a lot of very important people like that joined, I would say, during that year. My co-founder, for example, I joined I think a bit before the end of the 2018. Emilio, which is currently developing still on Aave Labs, before, he also joined in the summer maybe or something like that of 2018. So the team kind of reorganized quite a lot during that year, and during the next ones, because I think until the change to Aave was 2019, I think it was when we developed P1, and then was released 2020.
Right. Okay. And when you joined, what were your kind of role responsibilities? Were you a smart contract developer, or what were kind of the areas you were focused on?
Well, I was doing a bit of everything, from back end to smart contracts, to front end, tooling, so on and so forth. Because again, it was pretty small company and post ICO, so the structure was still setting itself up. But from the very beginning, I was probably more oriented to the smart contract side. Of course, I was still learning, but everybody was learning, because production back there was right now the development is completely different world, on Ethereum, and so on. Back in the day, it was very tricky, to compare with nowadays. But yeah, I think even at the beginning, I was oriented more to the smart contracts, and then over time, even more to the smart contract side, and then also quite some management, because so my co-founder, for example, Andre, was purely on back end and front end. I will say very technical role. Then, for example, Emilio was very on the smart contracts, purely on the smart contracts, which obviously involves economics and so on in this kind of field. And in my case, was oriented to the smart contracts, but also supervising the other parts too, supporting the leads of those parts too. And that is why it naturally evolved into being in the CTO position, but quite hands-on CTO position, I will say.
Right. Not pure management all the time. Still
far from
doing some. Yeah. Well, you mentioned tooling. How would you compare? Because a lot of people, weren't in the space back then when you were, and they just think maybe Foundry's been around forever, some of these things. What was the tooling like back then when you joined versus how it is today?
Well, the tooling was completely different, because it's what I mentioned, the development framework, for smart contracts, was Draft, I will say. There was some others, I don't even remember the name, that we tried back in the days, so. And Remix was still used quite a lot, so connecting local, to Remix, so usually just as an IDE, or even just developing, when some simple concepts on Remix itself, which nowadays, it's kind of funny to think about that, and then tooling, tools formal verification, fascinating. Forget about it. I think that there were already some attempts, Trail of Bits, is working on that field for quite some time, and not almost, but quite some of the current companies, they started cooking around that time, but for teams application layer, to actually use that with the levels that we use. Us or any other major protocol at the moment in production, nothing comparable. That was experimental times. Why nowadays, it's still a bit experimental, I would say. But you can have something very production ready. So yeah, I think Sarah had appeared at some point. Don't remember exactly when, but I think 2019 or so. And that was a big very big change, like I would say, like hard hat. Yeah. And then, yeah, progressively more stuff started to appear. Foundry, it was actually pretty late. I think, so Foundry, like we adopted it like when we created BGD, like last, like so in 2022, like, and for us, it was very, very clear, like, good tool more than anything, like for not switching context, like and being in the same Solidity environment, like because yeah, back in the days we had in Hardhat, like it was and still is like actually a very very good tool, like but yeah, found this more comfortable sometimes. Like Hardhat, I think now supports everything, like but I cannot talk too much because we do almost everything found. So. So yeah, that was like kind of how it was back in the days. Like not so mature tooling. Like so you need to figure out things like verification, like debugging. Debugging was hellish, like we will say. Like a lot of the smart contracts not verified of integrations. Like so it was tricky. Again, of course, ourselves, like because we were learning. Like everybody was learning. Like so when I think of I don't know, mistakes that we did back in the days, like, or the level, like, I mean, the level that we had in the initial team, well, it's as always, you look in the past and you say, okay, this was not so good, like, but it improved, like, and I think it's just natural, and for the same for us than for all other projects out there. So, yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. So I guess in terms of your progression over the last 7 or 8 years that you've been at Aave, obviously Aave became decentralized at some point, and so now you're at BGD. How do you keep up with managing, writing some code if you're still writing code, and staying on top of the latest kind of, whatever, whether it's EIPs or just new research topics? How do you kind of balance your time?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, like we have a pretty strong team, like so that is like the fundamental piece, like of everything. Like by myself, like I mean, this concept of like solo debt, like in a system like which involve financial like numbers, like as Aave or even way smaller than Aave, like yeah, without having a strong team, like you will not do anything. Then on my side, I think that precisely my type of character, like of what I mentioned before, that I'm quite transversal person. Like so, I'm good like to switch context. I would say that is one of my top qualities. Like so, yeah, I'm just able like to jump into developing some smart contract code, like and together with reviewing something different, like and thinking about product, like which yeah, I think is quite fundamental, like for a management position, like mine, while still being a very technical like type of company, because what we do is like something very very specific and very very critical, like in an industry which is very specific by itself, like so yeah, like splitting my time is very difficult to say, like but I mean, writing code, I don't write so much code, obviously. Nowadays, I review quite some code, like, but writing it is a bit more rare for the type of work that we do on Aave. But 60-40 or something like that, like involved nearly 40 in code, like and 60 like coordinating all other projects. Also because like not everything that we do is directly writing code. Like there is a lot of security coordination, planning, like analysis of assets to get on board into Aave, like permissions validation. There is like countless items like in a system like Aave, right? So not everything is just like writing code, definitely. So.
Yeah. Well, that's seems like a really good skill to have, because it's super difficult to go between those two worlds of writing, reviewing code, and managing teams. I know a lot of people and startups struggle with that. So I guess in terms of Aave now being more decentralized, Aave having almost 70 billion in assets, anytime you want to make a change to the code of Aave, we're talking about putting it on a governance forum, having hundreds, if not thousands of people looking at the proposed changes, critiquing them. What is it like? Obviously, it probably wasn't like that in 2017, 2018. What is it like now being in that position where anytime you want to make a change to the code, you have, hundreds of people kind of commenting on what you want to do?
I mean, it's a pretty good question. Like, but it has quite some layers. Like, so, yeah, in terms of like the criticism of people, like, or the feedback or so on, like, I feel that like I will want that there will be more, like, most probably, like, the issues like that the systems like Aave and their decentralization hub, like, is actually that we are trying to model like democratic systems, like, some type of platform or smart contracts set, like, or whatever you want to call it, like, which is very technical, very economic, so on and so forth. Like, so, like, the crude reality is that you cannot expect, like, for anybody to have an educated, like, opinion, like, regarding that, because in order to have an educated opinion, you need to have like quite some baggage, like, of even specific knowledge about the platform, and I'm not even talking about like the knowledge, the global knowledge that you need to have about the context, like, so about DeFi, like, about the models of liquidity pools, like, of lending, like, so on and so forth. Like, so this is actually one of the challenges, like, I will say, like, on decentralization at this stage, because the systems are mature enough, like, so they are not like Uniswap V2 pools on where, well, I mean, it's a model that, yeah, you need to understand once, but once you understand it, it's not so crazy, like, to have opinion on. A system like Aave, like, or others, like, is relatively complex. It's far for being as complex as some Web2 type of software. And that is one of the advantages, like, I would say, like, of the blockchain like side, but still, like, it's complex enough. Like, so, yeah, everybody can have an opinion, like, but there is quite some apathy, like, of I would say, of people thinking that should I actually voice my opinion, like, because maybe what I'm saying, like, is some ignorant take, like, on his own, and this is like not so good, I would say, like, because the reality is that we are pretty open, like, to any, like, feedback or any opinion. Of course, like, that doesn't mean that they are going to be correct or that we are not going to push back, but it happens, like, quite frequently that somebody points out something that, like, then maybe it doesn't imply a change to be applied into Aave, but it gives, like, some food for thoughts, like, to maybe, like, go into certain direction, like, on research side, like, or maybe even modify, like, some upgrade, then, like, so. So yeah, I think not like I would say the opposite of what you mentioned. Like, that I would appreciate to have even more participation. Like, of course, like, polite participation. Like, but yeah, like, it's not bad.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. And I know your talk at DeFi Security Summit, the most recent DeFi Security Summit, was about sort of the trade-off between adding new features to Aave, which, increases the attack surface. There's $70 billion at risk, versus not adding those new features and not increasing the attack surface and potentially maybe falling behind, or whatever the negatives of that path are. How would you kind of describe your process of how you think about that trade-off?
I think the problem is, I mean, not sure if it's even the problem, like, but it's not easy to generalize, like, with almost every, like, decent level software. Like, so, like, almost all the situations are pretty ad hoc. Like, so, yeah, of course you can define certain guidelines of how you develop, like, the system. But one of the issues to do that, like, is that, yeah, the system is, like, mature enough, but it's not like so mature system, like, as, I don't know, like, traditional software, like running a very stable machine, like, or the platform itself where the application runs. Like, so that is one of the main points on why I have pretty strong opinion, like, on mutability, like, because, like, the reality is that, like, the platform that is hosting, like, the application layer is still evolving, like, and is arguably that it's evolving even faster than the application layer, like in the last 2 or 3 years. Like, so for me, like that, like having, some idea of like not making something mutable. It doesn't matter like the strategy of mutability or not. I'm not even talking only about upgradability, like on the smart contracts, like is not actually what happens. Like, because yes, like we can discuss like about if it's good or not to do upgrades like on a smart contract, like via like the upgrade patterns. But the reality is that people keeps like doing new versions of the protocol, which are separate deployments, but still like they are like an upgrade of the system, requiring certain actions from the users, like of migration or so on and so forth. Like, so I think that like my point of view is just quite natural. That of course, like there is like certain parts of a system, like especially that is touching so much capital, like that naturally should be not touched so much, like because there is not so much value of doing it. But that doesn't mean that like when you see something that can be improved and gives back, like it should not be done. So that is kind of to answer your question, like the type of process that we do, like being on this like thing, like line, like of okay, we think that a lot of stuff can be improved, but what we think that it gives certain value or is worth it to improve versus what not, what is has more priority versus not, like and these decisions kind of like give the impression that get a bit magnified, like by the numbers, like behind the system, but honestly, that is a bit different. Like in my case, in the sense like that, I think it's mandatory, like for developers like us, like on a system like Aave, to be very abstract. Like I mean, still having the foot like on the feet on the ground, like but being very abstract of what is behind. Like, so I really honestly think that like for me, like when Aave was $10 million, like versus now $70 billion, like it's pretty similar in terms of my perception of criticality. Like I don't think that I mean, I know like obviously like the type of criticality, but like it doesn't like make too much of a difference. And I think that is very positive, that like understanding like what is at the stake, but not getting obsessed, like because like if you get obsessed, like or you will just immobilize, like you will be immobilized and not do anything, right? Because it's like, okay, maybe I can break something. Yeah, I mean, if you have good procedures, like you should not break like anything, and I mean, or you need to have protections, like to well, if any problem will happen, you can react to that. So yeah, I think that is how I see it.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. I mean, I was looking at your talk from DeFi Security Summit, and during that talk, you said Aave is at 25 billion in assets, essentially in TVL, and today it's 70 billion. And I was just like wondering, man, does anything change, or is that number just a number? Like 25 billion to 70 billion, there's, if you were a bank, there's different stages and different things that change as that number grows. But from what you said, it's kind of like, well, whether it's 10 million in TVL or 70 billion, you kind of think of it similarly. So is that really the case? Like,
it's about being practical, I would say, like, because for sure, like you should not probably have exactly the same procedures. Like definitely not when you are 10 million and when you are 70 billion or 25 billion. Like, or even 25 and 70, highly possible. Like that the procedures should change and evolve. Like, but the reality is that at this stage, like if you try to like over bureaucratize, like let's say like a system like Aave, or having like a lot of steps, a lot of like entities involved in different stages, like I will say that it will hurt potentially more than it helps. Like, because first of all, like there is not enough people like that can be involved, like or even define that type of procedure, like and supervise like that type of procedure. Like
right.
So being practical is like, okay, like we need to still keep things more or less simple, like as simple as possible. Like and yeah, we know that there is like certain risk that probably could be minimized a bit more, like by changing certain things. but it's not completely straightforward. Like let's say return of investment, like in terms of resources, like of that. Does it make sense like to I don't know, set up multiple stages like for upgrade, like in some completely different way versus focusing like on improve the tooling of visibility of upgrades, like or just do some extras like I don't know, like security audits, like or security procedure, like phashing or formal verification. Maybe not, maybe yes, like but that is like the thin line that we on BGD do, like of we choose. Like so, like we have enough knowledge, like, and aside from that, we just take certain decisions, which then, of course, like need to be approved. Like, but we take the decision, like, to whenever required.
Right. Okay. And it sounds like you've erred on the side of flexibility, keeping things simple, as you said, and
as much as possible. Yeah.
As much as possible, which gets harder, I'm sure every day.
No, for sure. Like, I mean, like you have more networks, like you have countless assets, like, so it's that is one of the points, like, of mutability, like, by nature, is that lending, like DeFi lending, like, is mutable by nature. Like, you have new assets entering all the time. You have different, like, levels of liquidity. You have like oracles that change like over time, like how they work. Like you have so many external pieces that you cannot just say I remove them, because the whole point is that to be able to settle those pieces. Like so, you really need flexibility, like which is not contradictory with having good procedures. Like, but for example, it takes time. This is one of the challenges, like that, from talking with other teams, like on the industry, that the technical teams, I mean, that they find very interesting from the other side, like of that. Okay, you guys are managing like so many assets, like so many networks, like, and still you keep delivering, like more or less. I mean, sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's slower, like the rhythm of, like, let's say, innovation, like, or new development or something. But you do it. It's not that you have like the system like of 3 years ago and that's it. Like it never evolved and everything else is procedures. No. It's like it keeps evolving. Like so, keeping that equilibrium. I think this is like one of the big differentiators, like of what we achieve, like with on the DAO, like, because, and that is another point, like that is different organizations, like completely independent organizations, which by themselves, like you need to coordinate, like more or less at least, like so. Yeah, that is very interesting, like from the organizational point of view, I would say.
Do you have any advice for other companies or DAOs? Because we've seen in the space a lot of DAOs that get really decentralized and they kind of fall apart to some extent because there's a lot of people with a lot of different viewpoints all trying to pull at different areas. But at the same time, you have to become more sort of decentralized, permissionless to really gain the trust of your users. So what advice would you have for other teams? Because I think Aave has been one of the best at this over the last few years of navigating that kind of tricky, how do we support tons of assets, but how do we also, and new technologies and things like that, but how do we also, make sure that there are things in place to allow whales or institutions to be comfortable using Aave?
I think again, it has quite some layers, like, but one of the main issues, like, is that until very recently, and now it seems that there is like really like some advance, it's a very gray area, like of is decentralization good or is centralization good, like, right. Like, and how to do one and how to do the other, like so. This is one of the very big challenges, like for small teams, especially, because it's like, I mean, like, it's by definition you access the Ethereum like environment, which is a completely open like environment where anybody like can write the smart contract and deploy it, like, but so you cannot be like, I mean, you don't know like how to make the structure of a company, like a young developer, let's say, like or how it should be like the plan of centralization versus decentralization progressively, or if it makes sense, like from a business standpoint, like or maybe it's a common good. Like there is like so many variables, Like so, at the end of the day, what we did, like it was like from what we thought it was the best, like and things that are like very very obvious, like often like people trust most probably non-anonymous people like to run like a protocol, and anonymous people like I would say, like so that was one of the cases of Aave, like because I think everybody like is not anonymous like on the Aave ecosystem, like and then all the decisions were pretty natural in the sense that whenever the Aave token like was pretty distributed, like it was in pretty decent shape since the beginning, like but at some point it was pretty clear that it was pretty distributed, like so then it was just very clear that the DAO actually gives back like the governance control, like because I think that is something that people tends to forget, that like on-chain governance, like DAO governance via token, like if the token is well distributed, it's just very good security-wise. Like, of course, you need to have like certain protection against it and so on, like, but it can be very good, like because like the challenge on how to control like a protocol, like without that, well, it boils down that you need to have like some type of multi-signature, some extra protections around and so on, like, and it's arguably less strong. Like, I cannot be categorical on that, but that is, I will say, the case for Aave. Like, so. I think like my advice to teams like thinking on this direction is just being rational, like, and being honest, like which maybe is a lot to ask or maybe not, like but usually like when you follow those, like things will naturally work out. Like, so if I don't know, like if you want to put an on-chain governance on a new token, like, well, you know that it probably is not a good idea. Like, just figure out how to just have like a multi-sig controlling it and put like some protections around. It's, my opinion, perfectly fine. And what I don't think is so fine is like to have that type of setup and making it appear as it is something else, because that just confuses everybody else. Like, so, I mean, I know like plenty of teams like that have completely centralized like control on-chain systems, and it's fine, like because they are clear about it. Like, of course, it has certain risk, like, and it has certain advantages, like, and the point should be like just outlining those, and that's it. Like, there is nothing to be ashamed of. Of course, like, respecting like the law, like, or whatever is applicable, like on the type of business, right? But
yeah.
And I was different, to be honest. Like back in the days, like it was very, very clear on everything. Like because DeFi was like it didn't exist. Like so, we were like a bunch of weird guys, like writing some very, very fancy software, distributed software, like and dealing with some type of financial transaction. Kind of, not even like that. Like so, it was not so simple. Like to have some guidelines of what to do. Like, so, figure it out.
Yeah, makes sense. That's really interesting around being honest about what you are and not trying to make it look like something else. I guess in terms of, the upgrade conversation we were having earlier, you mentioned Uniswap, and I'm really curious because Uniswap and Aave are two of the biggest DeFi protocols, most well respected, and they take different approaches to upgrades. Like Uniswap doesn't really do them. They go V3.0 straight to V4.0. And for Aave, you go to V3.0, then you do 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, 3.4, and then you go to V4.0. What do you see as the benefits to each approach? Like, why is Aave not going just from V3 to V4? Why do you do the upgrades in between?
Well, I think like even comparing like those systems is like very misleading. Like this is one of the issues. Like I will say that we have in the industry at the moment, that like there is people with very strong opinions. Let's say like it's still a pretty small group, like in terms of the development community and security community, and very strong characters. Like which is good. Like for a lot of things, like not so good for others. Like so. this type of comparison of Uniswap is like everything is immutable, like no variability, while for example Aave, it's just based like on the fact that they are very well known brands, like so why not comparing them? Like it makes complete sense. Like sure, it makes a bit of sense, like but the reality is that the systems are completely different, like the underlying systems. So it happens that the strategy like of both products converge sometimes, but in some others they don't. Like so because like it's in the year like for Uniswap B1 or B2 to be fully immutable. But probably yes, like because why not? Like it's a very simple system, like and then migrating liquidity is kind of required, like because if you will want to change the system, the change is so radical, like that it probably just makes more sense, like for users to just migrate to another smart contract, and you just focus like on the tooling for doing that migration. Like in the case of like something like Aave, the more time it passes, the less sense it makes, like in my opinion, like for this migration. Like because yes, like from B1 the changes required like for B2 or B3, like they were relatively radical, like or at least it was very complicated, like to make them like in a safe way. Like now on B3, this line starts to be a bit more blurry, like I would say, like because yes, like certain architectural changes, like and this is the case of before now, like well, it's not so simple like to apply them on B3, like doable, probably yes, like worth it, debatable, like I would say, like depends, like that is like that is what I mentioned before, like of when software is sufficiently advanced, like it's very opinionated, like everything. Like so, it's more about taking certain decisions. Like but is it correct, like to do all the time upgrades versus deploying new versions? Difficult to say. Like at the moment, like I don't know, like in the case of Uniswap with the new version. Well, it feels that like it's a system that could be worth to be upgraded, like too. Like, but they have like their for sure like their own approach, like and the idea like of why they want to upgrade versus not or reverse, like and it's I mean strong arguments for sure they have for that, like so. And in the case of Aave, both sides can be debated like basically endlessly, like and with very valid arguments, like both sides, like so. It depends. My opinion, for example, like because I usually have the relatively strong opinions, is that if you have a system of like 70 billion, like probably you should just maintain it, like for as much as possible, like and try to improve it if it's not like some completely out of hand, like type of project. I mean, for perspective, like the B3.0 that there was at the beginning compared with the B3.5 that is running right now on Aave, there were very radical changes, like on the system. Like it's kind of the same, like, but if you look at the details, it's very far from it. Like the type of accounting, having it more static versus dynamic, precision math, like that we completely revamped it, like into now in B3.5, like mode, I mean, grouping of assets like on the pool, completely different too. Like there is like so many changes, like some features deprecated, some others added, like countless. Like so, like it's good, like that people like still perceive like B3 as B3, because it's true that like that the changes were like very carefully chosen, like and very carefully applied, and for a period of how much? 3 years? Like, 3 years, like a bit more than 3 years right now. But still, there were like quite some change. So it's like 5 upgrades, like over 3 years, which is pretty, depends on with what you compare, but we could say like it's not so fast paced, it's not so slow paced either. Like, and of course, like then some upgrades are bigger, some others are smaller. Like, so it just depends. Like, so.
Yeah. I mean, I think the advent of Aave V4 is just such an interesting thing, because you have V3 here with 70 billion in assets. I mean, how do you think, and Aave v4 is obviously going to start from scratch with zero TVL. So how do you think Aave is going to manage supporting V3? Are they going to continue supporting V3? Are they going to aggressively try to get everybody to V4? What if users stay on V3? How do you think Aave is going to approach that?
Well, again, like I think this was down to what I mentioned before, like of just trying to be rational. Like usually the best decision, like sometimes is not making things too complicated. Like the advantage is that in the case of Aave, we have already experienced like with B2 and B3. B2 is still like I don't know how much, but like in the order of 400 something or 500 million. So in three networks, and active deprecation steps, like meaning like incentivizing like migration with even not so aggressive like steps, like of okay, let's adjust like the rates like to be a bit better like on B3 than on B2, like because liquidity should just migrate like for mainly a reason of maintenance, like because like still like you need to keep an eye like on the maintenance of a non-deprecated product, like so yeah, the people naturally migrate, like that is the reality, like from B2 to B3. Case of B3 to B4, I think is more interesting though, because like the size is very different. Like at the moment, the number of assets and the type of assets is very different. The DeFi ecosystem, the users, like how advanced they are, like is also very different. Like some of them are relatively sophisticated. So it is creates unpredictability, I will say. Like before, yeah, definitely. Whenever you have like greenfield, like to develop, like certain parts, like it should be more optimal than B3. Like they must be more optimal than B3. Like so. I will even say that the target is slightly different, like because B4 is quite oriented, like from the communications of the team which is doing it, like to builders, I would say, like or to like more modularized like approach, but in terms of this like middle managers, even like of people that wants to run their own mini pool, like something like that.
Right.
While B3 is not like that. B3 is very monolithic, and is on purpose very monolithic, like because it's like controlled by a sole entity, which is the DAO, which happens to be multiple entities behind the scenes, and is opinionated on almost everything. Like so, and I think this was, it's quite proven that is like one of the recipes for the success, like during the last years, like of that when you try to do too much modularity, like it becomes tricky for users, like it becomes confusing, like UX doesn't catch in time, like with that approach, so on and so forth. Like so, the advantage that we have on Aave with B3 and B4, well, we have B3 perfectly fine, and there will be B4, like and all of them are Aave. If people migrate to B4 or stays on B3, the benefit at the end of the day is for the same, like entity behind the scenes. Like I don't think it should be too much of a concern. In terms of maintenance, that is for sure like something that will need to be addressed. Like, and it will take some time, like because obviously, like when you need to port a lot of the procedure from B3 to B4, like that it has some effort. Like even taking into account that a lot of the things that are done on B3, like probably they can be ported like to B4, like without too many changes. Not only in terms of tooling and code, but in terms of people, in terms of procedures, like so.
Interesting. So if V4 is going to have a little bit of a different focus than V3, a little bit more, I don't know if you call it modularity, but allowing people to kind of control assets a little bit more closely, third parties maybe. Do you see yourself like a year from now? Are you going to be working on Aave V3? Are you going to be working on Aave V4? Are you going to be working on Aave V5? Like, where do you kind of see your time being spent?
I think not on Aave V5, like probably not us or anybody else. You never know, but like that will not talk so well like from of B4 and of B3. Like so, difficult to say. Like our company is a bit special, I would say. Like so, we value quite a lot like our flexibility and our freedom. We are very puristic in that sense. Like we engage directly with the DAO. Like we have like 6 months contracts with the DAO. Like even we always keep our options open. But obviously like at the same time for since the inception we have been working on Aave. It will. Yeah, we are not gonna just disappear right now, and leave Aave without being in very good shape, which is in very good shape at the moment. Like that is I think the difference from back in the days, because back in the days in 2022, Aave was fine, it was working, it was secure, but everything on the periphery was not so well. So governance, how to manage changes in an optimal way, everything, bridging to other networks, the protocol itself. I think it was more on the periphery, organizations, everything was to be created from scratch, almost from a procedures and organizational perspective. So that is one of the big liftings on the last 3 years. And I mean, hopefully this will not happen before. I don't think it is going to happen because there is already a lot of learnings, and there is a lot of entities which they change over time. And I think this is one of the advantages, we can disappear tomorrow, and Aave will be fine. It's not that we have the keys of the protocol or something like that. It doesn't work like that, because this is part of our work, of contributing to the system in a way that we don't create too much dependency on us. It's for sure that we need to create sometimes local dependencies, or temporary dependencies, because that is the way of improving procedures, tooling, and so on. And this is one of the mistakes, I will say, by the way, of teams, right? Because they think that having something which is temporary centralized is no return. And it's not like that. Sometimes you just need to say, okay, for we need to create this procedure. It's not even about having control on the smart contracts, but we need to create this type of procedure on where we have an important role, and we know that there is almost no other entity that can replace it right now. But we also know that the moment that this flow runs for a couple of months or 3 months, then everybody understands the flow. And then there could be some other entity that could replace our role. So this is kind of the approach that we apply quite frequently. The worst case scenario is when you arrive to a place and there is no type of procedure at all, because then you depend purely on talent, of somebody. And sometimes you have that talent, and sometimes you don't. So.
Right. Very interesting. I guess shifting gears a little bit to the security side of Aave, you guys are probably one of the most in-depth teams when it comes to security, doing multiple audits for most upgrades, if not all upgrades. What are some of the maybe lesser known aspects of security that people would imagine you do audits? They can see you do a bug bounty program. What are some of the other areas that you guys invest into?
Well, I think, in terms of the areas, I don't think there is any secret sauce, or anything that we do, especially new to other teams, security audits, improving the test suite, which includes also the techniques fashion, formal verification, some other that we would like to introduce, more mutant testing, this type of stuff. And then the contests, the whatever external procedure, of review, audit, or however you want to call it. Whenever something appears that seems interesting to us and fits into our workflows, we are open to apply it. There is no doubt about that. Then maybe something that we do maybe slightly different, but I don't think that is so there is no other team do is we are pretty selective on the teams that we work with, and how we evaluate those teams. So it's not that always we say, okay, we have these 3 teams and they always do like the review of our code, like even on things like upgrade of Aave, because for us, it's also like an exercise of back in the days, let's say, I'm going to be to the branches, but back in the days in 2022, 2021, one of the main issues, like on the security industry from the application perspective, is that there was not enough like people. Like, so it was when back in the days, it was like the big three or big four, like audit firms, like, and those were good and everybody else was not so good. Like, or so it was understood. And that was a difficult situation to be in, like from the perspective of an application like Aave, like because well, maybe you are not so happy with one of those, like, or you don't especially like how they work, like, and you need to do exploration, like, of new partners, like, so this is what we put quite some focus, like on our side, like, of it's not only about doing like the security procedures, but it's about sometimes introduce like new wildcards, like to test out. Like it's not just like okay, there is no quality or that we don't check any type of credentials, but yes, like sometimes it's a bit of chaotic in the sense, okay, like we don't know if this is going to be successful 100%, but if it is successful, like this will give us quite some value, like going forward, like, and of course, like we have certain expertise to understand how good it can be a firm like or a security like researcher like by checking previous work like or by even talking like with them like so on that we are I think on the BGD Lab side like pretty active. Of course, like we have our classical partners like and some of them like almost review like every code, but if you look like at the like on the public reports of Aave, not so many, like maybe one, like two, like maximum. And there are exceptions, like of projects, even with those, because obviously, like some like firms, like I'm pretty sure, like that they will get over time specialized, like I would say, like in types of systems, as these systems get more complex. Like I'm not even talking about security researchers, but it's very, very obvious to me like that in 2 or 3 years, like there cannot be solo researchers, like, or maybe there is like a bunch of them, like 5 or so, like that they are very, very good, like on swap protocols, like lending protocols, like whatever, intense base, like breaches, like networks themselves. It's just impossible, like because all of those systems will keep evolving and evolving and evolving. And even if certain type of security, like I mean, types of exploits and so on will be common, like which is kind of the case, like in the traditional software industry. Like it's also true that like there will be specialization, like, and it happens right now and very clearly, like of that some people that is more oriented to lending protocols, like some people that maybe is more talented to some lower level things like math, like in some cases. Like so, I think this is like what will give more value of a company like us, like on BED, like over time too, like because to have the expertise of identifying what makes sense and what not. Well, first of all, like the output, like for whatever is the customer, like will be better, but also like the cost associated, like because yeah, of course you can always have like the approach of like we do 10 audits, we take like of some type of ranking, like the 10 top people, and that's it. And maybe you went spending $3 or $4 million, like, but like if you are a bit more selective, maybe you got a 10% of the cost, like and you have pretty much the same output, like or even better, like so. Yeah, I think even like the way that maybe to point another aspect, like the way that we work, like with the auditors, like is pretty hands-on, like so, like on the whenever we develop projects, like the documentation, like for me, for example, is completely basic. It's like the documentation should be always oriented like to auditors, like and to auditors that we didn't work with, like usually. Of course, there are exceptions of very small projects, but like the majority of the projects is not the case. Like it's because I mean, if even in a system in a system like the upgrade of Aave, if you cannot explain to a security auditor, like on the DeFi industry, even if not familiar with Aave, if you cannot explain clearly which is the upgrade about, and like all the edge cases that we identify, points of focus, and so on, well, then it means the upgrade is not ready. Like there is no other point. So this is kind of our policy, like internally of the documentation should be very good, like always, like because if you don't do it good, it means that you don't understand the system. So,
Right. So one question I want to ask you on behalf of all the independent security researchers out there. I know that there are some researchers who I won't name who have become very close to Aave, independent ones where you trust them a lot, you work with them on, many of the upgrades you do. How can an independent researcher get to that level? What advice would you have for somebody if they wanted to be one of those go-to independent researchers for a big protocol like Aave?
I think like the usually it boils down to work, right? To put a lot of work, because like there is no magic sauce here, like in my opinion. Like the research that we are working with, firms and souls, like they spend a lot of time like on the Aave code base, like really a lot of time. Like they submitted like reports, like invalid reports, minor valid reports, like in some cases major, but like it's just a lot of work behind the scenes. Like so, like and that just creates trust. And of course, like being honest, like and not trying to do like weird shenanigans. Like that is, for example, like a very strong stand against. Like, but I kind of understand it, like why the industry is like that. Like, and that is a bit sad. Like on like this sometimes like very polarized, like an adversarial like approach between like bounty hunters, like security researchers, like and projects. Like because I mean there is a lot of history like of projects like not fulfilling like or not being fair on evaluations and so on. But the reality is that I mean we have a project like Aave. We have nothing to win like of being unfair with the research. Nothing. Like it's just stupid from our side, and we tend to think that we are not so stupid. Like, but what we don't accept, for example, is like speculation. Like, and the difference is that we know like what is speculation, because we have sometimes maybe not as much, almost never as much knowledge like of specifically certain parts of security, like that maybe somebody is contributing, but enough like to do that. Like so, those are the problematic situations. Like, and I think that this is a pattern that I see like with almost I think all of them, like the majorly successful like researchers, like and bounty hunters and so on, that it's usually very easy to work with them. Like it's like there is almost no type of problem. Like and we are talking about people that has like earned quite some living, like people like of millions of dollars in some cases, like of bounties, like of contracts, like so on and so forth. And I mean, even before that, I think that they just accept when something is like fair evaluation, or maybe it's down, maybe it's high. Like it just depends. Like so, it's pretty rational people. Like always. Like so, like I will say that is a broad recommendation. Like of just trying to be honest. Like that, especially with like the top projects. Like there should not be much incentive, like to not be fair, like or to know or to try to do some stuff like that, and spend a lot of time like on the code, like participate in discussions. Like this is one of the things like that is what I mentioned before. Like it is kind of an issue like that to have apathy like on whenever there is an upgrade of Aave. But if you are a security researcher, like just participate. Like sure, maybe we will not like engage you like immediately. But there are so many cases like and usually like our relations like on the security side, they start like that, like with solos especially, like that they reach us with something in quite some cases maybe it's not valid, but because of the work that is put there, like we see certain understanding, we see certain like good approach, like and they are like in front line, like to work with us, like because we give a lot of value. We see like the effort that was spent, no matter the outcome. Like so yeah, pretty reasonable things, I would say, but maybe it's me.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, proactively adding value to Aave sounds like a great way to get on your radar on the security side of things. I know we're getting close on time here, so I want to get in a couple questions. One is, how do you think AI is going to impact security specifically for Aave?
$1 million question. I mean, I don't know. Like, it's difficult to say still, like at the moment. But like the symptoms I say, like that I see, like of AI having certain impacts, is that like last months, I will say, like not even the year, like more and more security researchers very clearly they are using some type of hybrid approach. Like I don't think that AI like is on the level like of finding deep bugs, like of involving like a lot of components, like and so on and so forth. But the reality is that like in both DeFi and the software industry, the bugs and the cause of them is historically all the time the same almost. Like I mean, I think that like both buffer overrides, like and these type of things, like and overflows, like because of C code, like they are happening for the last 70 years. And whenever or a pointer that is lost, like it's just you dig deep into certain vulnerability, which maybe then the output of the vulnerability is something which seems pretty new or in a new platform, but you go deep, like and quite frequently is the same type of thing. Some injection, like that causes like some overflow, like and then you get control, like or things like that. Like so, I think that this like as AI as like this type of filtering tool, like or a hinting tool of or even reminder, like of saying, did you check this and this and this and that? Because this is like, by the way, like another very important aspect that I see like on successful researchers, like they are ordered people quite frequently.
What people?
They have quite a lot of order, quite organized people. Like
okay.
So, like they are systematic. Like it's not only. I mean, for sure. Like I'm not generalizing, and definitely there is maybe some people that has very strong intuition. But I will say that the majority is not. Yeah, sure, they have very strong intuition, but then they don't non-act after the intuition. Like they keep that in mind. Like and they do pattern recognition, like from the first thing that they do, and they probably document in a lot of cases, like to have their own internal checklist, and that is the secret sauce. Because like it doesn't matter how good you are, like if the systems are complex enough, like you need to have some type of assistant with historically are your own nodes, like and your past self. So AI, I would say, like it could be this type of role, like of certain assistant that say, like, did you check this? And by the way, like you train me like with some thoughts, like from like of I don't know pattern on some smart contracts. Like, so did you think in this direction? Like, this is where I see certain potential value. Like, and I mean, this is more on the finding, like of vulnerabilities on the reporting side, like on the relations, like with customers and so on. Definitely here, like AI and these type of tools, like can be a game changer, like because like the reality is that, for what I know, like quite some researchers, like they prefer like to be in firms, like because firms like help like with the operations and with the daily life, while they can focus like on what they really like which is finding bugs, checking code. Like if you have a tool that can structure more your thoughts, like and this is one of the issues. Advantages with this type of people, like I mean, in security, like that. Sometimes it feels this almost contradictory that you are very good, like to be able to concentrate and find deep bugs, and having the communication in terms of like writing skills, summarization for a customer that sometimes is dumber than you. Like in most of the cases, like it's dumber than you. Like so. All tools that can improve that you just give more independence, like to the security researchers. And then firms, like I think this will be positive, like because it creates like some competition, not just among firms. Like it creates a competition like amongst like the researchers themselves, like and the firms, like so firms they need to find their place like into the ecosystem, like which I think is happening, like, but probably you know more than me, like in that direction, like in terms of positioning of the firm versus security solos, like and so on. So
yeah, I mean, so you've worked with dozens of firms, you've done formal verification, you've done a bunch of different areas of Web3 security. What is your most controversial take on Web3 security?
I think that, I mean, everything changes very, very fast. Like, techniques that were working very well 2 years ago, like now they need to be slightly different. Like, so for example, like we have been supporting formal verification from this year, and we do formal verification right now. And I think that is completely mandatory, like for a lot of systems, like, but generalize it is problematic. Like I mean, the return of investment, like whenever you try to really apply it everywhere, is probably not there. Like I should be always an hybrid approach, like of you formally verify something, like and then you cover the rest, like that is way more complex, like in terms of models, like with other techniques, like unit testing and so on and so forth. But this is not so controversial; it's just like an observation, like of that. I don't know. I don't really have so much controversial. Like I think that the bug bounty, like for example, like Realm is pretty broken at the moment. Like I don't know if that is controversial. Mainly because I don't have too much solution. Like I will say, for me it just feels. Yeah, maybe this is controversial. It just feels like that having the industries, like traditional industries, like having very low bug bounties compared with DeFi. Yes, it speaks better, like from DeFi, but the difference for DeFi, but the difference is so huge, like that it feels that something is weird there, like or and even the approach or like of thinking like that it will be always like that, like or aspects like that, proportional bounty compared with TBL and so on. This is something that like it doesn't feel natural to me. For sure, I think that like the bounties as they are right now, like probably are fine, like and they are healthy to the ecosystem, like but still like it's too adversarial between projects and like and security researchers, like at the moment the field, like so. I mean, it's difficult to explain to security researchers that Aave has 60 billion TBL, but it's not really an option to pay probably 6 billion, like as a bounty, a 10%. Like yeah, sure. Like if analyzing very, very rational, the thing like for sure is better than losing everything. Like, but it has huge implications, like that situation, like because then you need to price, like okay, how is the effort of everybody else that is around. Like, so it's very complex topic, which I honestly don't really have a solution. But I really think that bug bounties as they are right now are a bit broke. Like, so we need to keep improving on that.
And the reason they're broken is because it's so adversarial between security researchers and projects.
Probably yes. Probably that is the core issue. Like, and it doesn't really have an easy solution. Like, because projects like they misact, like historically, and probably the way to fix or to try to fix this, like, is the role of the bounty platform, like which is also very complicated, like, because I understand that it's easy from the security research side, like the bounty hunter, like to say the platform should protect us, which is legit, and it happens actually at the moment. It is the case, like, but at the same time, they also need to understand like the client still is the application, like so like it's almost unavoidable, like that the application has influence, like because like it will create a very tricky scenario where the application needs to, I don't know, lock funds on the platform, which I think is the case, like right now, but in a scale, like and enforce completely, because then the question is like, who should evaluate? Because the most expert entity is the protocol, like, and it will always be like the team of the protocol, like so almost almost always, like at least, like so. Why a third party should actually have decision power, like on doing a resolution? So, like this is the type of challenge. Like maybe it could be doable involving other external parties, like some type of committees, like and so on. But this something that's still to be solved. Like I would say, like so.
Yeah,
Some thoughts on that.
It's a tricky problem. I've got a lot of thoughts on it, but maybe for another time. I guess kind of closing question: what's next for you in Aave? You know, what are you most excited about in the future?
I think keeping just observing like how everything is evolving in DeFi by itself, like is quite exciting to me. Like because like things are accelerating, like and that has direct implications, like in the platforms themselves, like in the applications. So assets are becoming quite different for the good and for the bad. Like and so seeing like how a system like B3 like keeps adapting to that, and if it has limits, like this will be interesting by itself. Like so yeah, probably that, and some of the technology. Like I mean, at the end of the day, it sounds a bit like a meme with the AI. Like, but it really is interesting, like to see how it will affect almost all the fields out there, including DeFi, including like financial services and so on. Like because it feels, I mean, I'm no deep expert on field, like, but it really feels that it's touching something that creates some changes. Like in which layer? Well, that I'm not so sure if it will be so much on a core layer. Like, so, for example, like I don't think like that AI will be developing very core smart contracts like next couple of years, like or something like that, because I don't think it makes much sense, like for that, like due to how they are basically, like they are small code, like usually like very critical, like so okay, yeah, maybe you can have some auto generation, but if then you review completely the code, if then you write the test, like and so on, well, probably it's the same as writing the code already. So but everything that is surrounding it, like probably will create like it will create like quite some changes, especially on the user side, because the moment the DeFi becomes more and more complex, like it's always a challenge, like for like user experience, like to catch up, like with the underlying system, and maybe AI like will have like an interesting role there, like on how to bridge that gap. So that is exciting too, yeah. And the security side, like yeah, maybe all this last part that we discussed, like of bug bounties, like and so on, like yeah, I mean there is quite constantly some innovation. Like I think from your side, like you did quite some. Like so, like I expect like next couple of years, like that this will keep happening. Like so, maybe like our future discussion will be quite different, like on this point. Right?
Yeah, I expect it will be, and looking forward to what that future has in hold. Thanks so much for taking the time, Ernesto. Really appreciate you coming on, and yeah, looking forward to watching the progress of Aave. Seems like the TVL is going up every month. So yeah, great chatting with you today.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks a lot. See ya.